Chief Makinaw, Chief Crowchild, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm going to start with the fundamental question most people would have is, some First Nations, and many would say most First Nations, are supporting this legislation. C91 on languages, C92 on welfare rights, on child welfare. Why are you taking a stand against it?
Well, you know, this fits into what this Liberal government is trying to do, rights and recognition. They're trying to throw lots of money at us, and that's why they're proposing the 10-year fiscal relation. Because they know that we're struggling with a lot of these social issues, a lot of these economic issues and that. So they're saying, well, hey, we'll give you all this money for 10 years, we'll guarantee that. Acknowledge our rights and recognition. And then you'll all be happy, and we'll be happy because we'll have addressed changes and social issues, and we'll have violated what treaty process is all about when we sign treaty. It's important that we recognize that, especially us in the treaty regions, we didn't sign under the new constitution in 1982. That was not, Canada was not a state then, so we didn't sign with Canada. We originally signed with the British Crown and the House of Lords and the Queen. So we're reminding them that we didn't give up anything. This rights and recognition is going to say, well, you're going to give up this, so we'll give you this kind of money. And that's why I think a lot of First Nations have no problem with it. And some of them, they're not bound by treaty. Yeah, of course they'll look at it as a new treaty.
Well, Chief Makinaw, I was going to ask you the same question. I mean, because a lot of people don't understand. When we see over the years, it's often been the treaty bands, now treaty First Nations, especially from Alberta, who are here protesting this. What do you say to the average Canadian who says, well, no, I mean, what's the difference? Why would you beg to differ and differ from other First Nations?
Well, it's with our treaty and inherent rights and our relationship with the Crown. That's what that's what we're trying to emphasize here, because if this goes through with all these bills being in Parliament right now, and June 20th, I think, is the last day of this session, and then the federal election, that's where, this is going through without our free, prior, informed consent, and that's where a lot of the issues we have is because the government is not speaking to us before these bills are even drafted, that's where, if we could they could have us more involved in the process. It would change the relationship to be better for both sides, but right now it's not that way. So hopefully, that will change in the future. Okay,
well, so if Bill C91 and if Bill C92 and C97 pass, where do you go from here?
Well, I think like what Chief Makinaw says, they're going to summer recess. So if they're trying to push something through as hard as they were to beat June 20th, I think it's ill-advised for them to do that. I think that they'll face a lot of uprising, a lot of actions, especially from the prairie areas, because there's a lot at stake here.
But if they pass the legislation, what happens? You're saying it's the extinction of your treaty rights, so where do you go from there?
If I could see into the future, I could tell you. Right now, we're doing what we're capable of doing. I think you might see a lot more extreme actions take place. I don't know what that looks like, but it'll be kind of it'll be a compromising of our principles. Like I'm Tsuut'ina, I'm sovereign, a sovereign nation. We have principles that we adhere to. So should these bills pass and that, then we'll have to strategize, well, what is the next move?
I guess the last question is if, and this gets back to the first question, that is if the legislation passes, if it, as you say, violates your sovereign rights, crowned a nation, how do you get public opinion on your side when even some First Nation public opinion, as Chief Crowchild was saying, is in favor of this legislation?
Well, I guess we'd have to sit down and discuss it further after everything is done, because right now we're just waiting to see what's going to happen, and then probably do a follow-up meeting after to discuss our options, because as Chief Crowchild said, there are different ways we can deal with this. So right now, after everything is over in the next month or so, then that's when we'll probably sit down and assess the situation and go from there.
Okay, I want to thank both of you for speaking with us, and we'll watch this with great interest. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.